Disclosure. That is the buzzword around the UFO community at the moment, and there is a good reason for that, because so many people are coming forward to expose their truths surrounding UFOs, aliens, crafts, and everything of the like. And the latest is Tim Galorder. Now, we've covered Tim Galorder in a recent video where he came forward to basically talk about how we are absolutely categorically not alone, and in fact in contact with alien civilizations and alien species, and how he was kind of coming forwards to speak about disclosure. Now, if you haven't seen that, I'll play the clip for you now. It was on News Nation around 7 months ago, and it was basically how Tim Galorder came forward after the congressional hearings with David Grush and things like this to really hammer in the nail of disclosure for UAPs and the like. Take a look at this.
UFOs on Capitol Hill, News Nation's exclusive reporting in a July 26 congressional hearing where lawmakers heard from key witnesses are leading to calls for more answers. Next guest wrote a piece for The Hill titled "UFOs are the story of the century, Wake Up America." In it, he gives some recommendations for what lawmakers should do next. Joining us now, retired Rear Admiral Tim Claudette, former administrator of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association, CEO of Ocean STL Consulting. All right, good to see you, sir.
Now, just in case you weren't already in the know of Tim Galorder, there is some of his accolades. Rear Admiral of the Navy. He's got a PhD. He's like stacked up with the credentials. So this is the guy to be listening to.
Sir, thank you. I just have a question. If UFOs are real, right, and there's aliens and we have them, wouldn't that sort of be the story of the world from the beginning of time rather than just the century?
Well, it's great to be here, Leland. Thanks. And absolutely, yes, it's a story of our civilization, really. And as I outlined in that op-ed, this really, from a scientific and a security standpoint, is unlike anything we've ever known. And by the way, those three very credible witnesses at the hearing, all former military officers, all with backgrounds similar to mine, they claimed, and I fully believe them, that they have evidence of this.
Well, respectfully, they claim that they knew of evidence. I have not heard of anybody who actually has real proof so far. I've heard a lot of conjecture. I've heard a lot of I know, and there are places and there are people, but there's been nobody who's pulled out Google Maps and said, hey, here's the buildings with the aliens, or hey, here's some of the documents, even blacked out documents with the project names on them. Nothing.
Right. Well, there's two pieces, actually. One, there are observations by the pilots who are very credible witnesses and have seen things we can't explain. And then there's the one witness, David Grush, who actually has talked to people right into these programs. And I do know how these programs work, compartmented and classified access programs, special access programs, pardon me. And I have every reason to believe David, and I do know some of the folks he's spoken with. And so I've not seen the data and the material myself yet, but I do know people who have. And that's going to be coming out as Congress keeps pushing for disclosure with the draft legislation that Senator Schumer has put forward.
That's what you're pushing for, right, Rear Admiral? This is Johanna Masca. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, one thing I always think is a lot of people were dismissing, space exploration until we explored in space. You've been at this for a long time, and you've been saying this could be the new dawn of quantum computing, and all of these different things could rewrite the galaxy. What are the potentials that people really need to see when the White House is considering how involved they are going to be in all of this research that you're saying needs to be coming forth?
Oh, yes, Johanna, that's what I did say. I thought the scientific community needs to get behind this and remove all the stigma associated with UFOs. There's real science that needs to be done that can lead to breakthroughs in our understanding of physics and our understanding of our place in the universe. We know now from this hearing and what is going to be disclosed that we are not alone. And that is just transformational in our history. And I wrote this article because I cannot believe more people aren't talking about it. But over time, Congress is acting. And so this is more and more, this is going to get out there.
Admiral, it's Mark Lauder. One of the questions I have is, are we actually watching the government slowly starting to soften the way for this kind of an announcement. I mean, I've heard, and we all know, I was old enough to remember the Cold War. We were lied to and told that if we hid under our desks, put our hands over our necks, it would protect us from nuclear fallout, because society wasn't prepared to handle what the true devastation would be. And they knew that there's nothing we could do to protect ourselves. I mean, do we know, is this kind of getting society ready for the announcement?
Well, exactly, Mark. That's been happening. And in fact, a lot of the reason this has all been so covered up is because of those Cold War habits, if you will. But right now, Congress has been acting over the last 2 years, and we have legislation that was put forward to establish the Department of Defense, AARO, they call it, this All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. So the DoD has a UFO office. NASA has put forward a UAP study team. And now I've recommended to the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine to also pursue these. And it was through their Naval Studies Board. And the chair of that board, former Chief of Naval Operations Gary Roughhead, agreed and approved my leading a study team if I can get funding from the government.
All right. Good to see.
So that obviously kind of was what he said about 7 months ago. As we've seen now, obviously there is a lot of, we'll call it soft disclosure coming out from the government with their Pentagon reports and all the rest of it, even though the Pentagon reports were full of rubbish. But either way, it is happening. But move forward to more recent times. Yesterday, at the time of recording, there was a video released by Christian Harloff, who has got a YouTube channel where he kind of podcasts some kind of trending topics. But the most hot topic that he's covered is the Rear Admiral Tim Galorder was on his podcast, The Big Thing, where he was talking about UFOs, USOs, the Seoul Foundation, the China threat, all the rest of it. Now, USOs is the part that we're going to talk about first. So this is kind of underwater alien civilizations. Now, being a rear admiral, a retired rear admiral, but a rear admiral, you would have thought this guy's got some know on the sea, right? He talks quite heavily about the disclosure of not just UFOs, which is flying objects, but this is submersible objects, so unidentified submersible objects, which, kind of goes hand in hand with this theory that's going around that in the seas is where we would find alien civilizations, where we'd find aliens, crafts, all the rest of it. And it kind of goes hand in hand as well with some other craft disclosure that we've had regarding, remember the jellyfish UFO that came out back in January of 2024? It was said that this jellyfish craft was hovering over this base in Iran, and then it got over the sea for about 15 minutes, and then it just plummeted, dived under the sea before resurfacing again about 20-30 minutes later. So this kind of goes hand in hand with all of that. But if you listen to what Tim Galorder's got to say, it is so interesting. Take a little listen to this.
Domain like the oceans, which is vast, 70% of the planet that we do not have command and control of. We operate there, but if these things are that sophisticated and they're able to operate with sophistication there, maybe that's their domain. I don't know.
Well, and I guess, Tim, I want to ask you the same thing, and I don't know how much you're able to talk about it and within classifications and things of that nature, but when it comes to a similar question, do you have a certain theory? Do you have a certain confidence of what you think is going on down there, conversations that you might have, and one of the reasons that once you did retire that you wanted to come out and start speaking about it?
Oh, I'm totally convinced that we're experiencing a non-human higher intelligence. By the way, there's non-human intelligence all around in the ocean, especially when you look at marine mammals like whales and all that. But this is non-human higher intelligence, and they, of course, are possessing craft, vehicles, whatever that can do things we can't explain, and with technology we can't explain, and with laws of physics that are not what we know them to be, obviously. So, and I am completely convinced because I know the people who were in the government programs, the legacy programs that oversaw both the crash retrieval and just the analysis of UAP data. So I'm very confident in these people, former intelligence, former DoD, and we are working as a team behind the scenes to advance disclosure, a controlled disclosure, mind you, as was put forth in the Schumer Amendment.
Well, let me ask you that.
Now, just to interject a little bit, obviously, controlled disclosure is something that is a buzz topic that you're going to hear a lot. It's basically, the idea is we're not going to get the full wham of everything, you know, hence why the Pentagon released their report, and it was volume 1. There's going to be, I think, 1 or 2 more volumes of release information coming out, and it's the idea is you gently break this information out, and it gets people climatized to this kind of declassification and this information coming forward.
That then, for what you just said, because as all this report comes from Arrow this past week, or I guess by the time this airs, about a week and a half ago, this is something that I think is very old school of things, the way that it was done in the 50s and the 60s, and trying to do the Blue Book type of actions. It seems that way. But when you say you want to do disclosure in the right way, is there this fear now? Because you see, as soon as that report came out, the community in general and people that are pushing for disclosure are like, okay, well, it's coming the hard way now, and all this, and that seems to be right now for me on the outset seems like an empty threat, to be honest. But I ask you a two-part question here, Tim, if you will. The first part is, do you think that this report by Arrow risks a big leak in something that could be catastrophic disclosure? And I guess the second part of that is, why are there not other countries then? Why is the United States so like the front of this all? Why are the other countries at this point go, who cares what the U.S. is doing? Yeah, they're covering up since the 40s. Here's what we got.
Yeah, well, thank you, Christian. There's a couple things going on here. First off, this latest Arrow report, which basically denied any existence of evidence of an alien sources or operators of UAP and any possession of crash material, et cetera. What is going on with that report? And this is common in every other area of classified information in the Pentagon. They have decided that that information should remain classified and unacknowledged. So the unclassified story is there's nothing there. And I know that to be a fact because several of my former colleagues, retired Navy admirals in the intelligence community, they've commented on this publicly saying, this is great. We endorse and support this report. And I of course, have a different opinion. Mm-hmm. I don't want to criticize the folks at Arrow. They're intelligent professionals. They are working. I communicated with one of them today, and they are working to better understand what UAP are, because we still have a lot of uncertainty and questions. And frankly, the government still doesn't know what they are, where they come from, what their intentions are. But we do possess material and more data that the government does not want to disclose. And they're doing it, I surmise, because of national security reasons. They don't want our adversaries, China mainly, to know that we have these materials and that we might be trying to gain a technology advantage over them. That's just their policy decision. You know, I of course think we should have a different approach where we look deliberately, as was outlined in the Schumer Amendment, to say, okay, we're going to maybe not release some of the most advanced information that could be a risk in terms of giving an adversary a technology edge. But then we should release to the public just the awareness that we are being visited. That's important because there's so many national security and public safety concerns about this, knowing this fact, that we should have an informed public to develop this public policy that's totally absent and necessary. About our allies who are basically following our lead more or less, but not entirely. You know, France put out their Cometa report, and I think others, like one of the Canadian senior officials last week, your country, I think, spoke out about, I think, a need for disclosure. And so there's more. We should be showing leadership in the U.S. and right now, I don't want to say we're not. With disclosure, we are not showing leadership because we made the policy decision not to do it. I think it's unfortunate and it's going to be a setback. And as you said, Christian, this could very well lead to a pretty dramatic disclosure event with the whistleblower protections that exist, and in a way that is going to be out of control for the DoD. And I thought they should have been a lot smarter in how they approached that report.
Now, I completely agree with that. So I'm going to stop that interview there for now. But I think this is the issue, right? Is what we've got is you've got information being trickled out by Arrow, the Pentagon, DOD, all the rest of it in America. And it shows it's substantial lifts. There's nothing to it. There's no meat on the bones. So people are like, well, we know that you know more. And you're not showing us. You think we're stupid. Like, you're not showing us. So what are we going to do? That's when you get issues like rioting and all the rest of it, where you've got people coming forwards and being like, right, if you're not going to give it to me, I'm going to come and take it. And then you've got whistleblowers who are like, why are you not showing them this? Like, looking at the Pentagon being like, hang on, I know that you know this stuff, like, just tell them. And then they're like, no. And then they're like, right, well, if you don't tell them, I'm going to tell them. And I'm protected as a whistleblower, so you can't touch me. So I'm going to spout out everything that I know. And it's not going to be as controlled as you like, and it could cause mass mayhem. And this is where it gets very hazy, because you then go from a controlled, release of information to this sudden, like, boom, mic drop moment where you get an information dump, and then everyone's like, so you're telling me that we're in cahoots with X, Y, and Z, civilizations, and we're being visited every other week, and they're monitoring us, and then all the rest of it. That's obviously speculative. I don't actually know what they know, but hypothetically, that's the information that could come out. And then suddenly there's mass chaos. You've got chaos on your hands, potentially, where people are like, well, I didn't consent for me to be watched by aliens. And then you've got issues there, and it's like, why didn't you tell us this happened back in the 40s? And it's like, that was almost 100 years ago. And it's like, wow, like it quickly snowballs into a big problem. Whereas if, like Tim Galaudit says, you kind of trickle out the information gently, but you actually give substantial information to the public, not just this kind of, we know nothing, there is nothing, like you continue to try and hide it, but instead you're like, yes, this whistleblower's right, yes, we've been in contact with this civilization, yes, we are visited. That's all you need to say, because then it's like, we knew it. But then I guess at the same time, thinking about it now, it's then the case of, but what else do you know? You know this, you've hidden this from us, so we know that you're able to hide things. What else do you know? So I guess they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, really. But I do feel like we should know more than what we're being told. And I completely agree with people like Tim Galaudit who are coming forwards and being like, look, I know these things. The government know that I know these things. I'm happy to kind of blow the whistle on this, but I want to give the DOD a chance to expose this. And that's what Ross Coulthart has done as well. Recently, he's been like, I've got the people that the DOD and Arrow interviewed on tape. If the DOD and Arrow don't release this information, I will do it. I'll take that into my own hands. But I want to give these guys the opportunity to do it, because they can do it in a far more controlled manner than I can. And they can do it without, inferring on home security risks and all the rest of it. But that wasn't all that we had go on. So this came from the same podcast, but this was from a Reddit thread. I completely convinced that because I know people who are in the government legacy programs that oversaw both crash retrieval and analysis of UAP data. Former intelligence DOD, we are working as a team behind the scenes to advance disclosure. I've never got headphones on so quick, because this is exciting stuff.
I'm totally convinced that we're experiencing a non-human higher intelligence. By the way, there's non-human intelligence all around in the ocean, especially when you look at marine mammals like whales and all that. But this is non-human higher intelligence, and they, of course, are possessing craft, vehicles, whatever that can do things we can't explain. And with technology we can't explain, and with laws of physics that are not what we know them to be, obviously. So I am completely convinced, because I know the people who were in the government programs, the legacy programs that oversaw both the crash retrieval and just the analysis of UAP data. So I'm very confident in these people, former intelligence, former DOD. And we are working as a team behind the scenes to advance disclosure, a controlled disclosure, mind you, as was put forth in the Schumer Amendment.
Does that not tell you everything that we need to know? That literally just undoes the Pentagon's whole we don't know anything like report that came out about a week and a half ago. But there's all that I know from Tim Galorda. If you want to go and check out the full podcast episode for yourself, it is crammed with information just like this. I highly recommend you go and check it out. It is on the Christian Harloff YouTube channel, and the episode is Retired Rear Admiral Tim Galorda speaks of talks UFOs, USOs, Seoul Foundation, China threats, etc. Darcy Weir. So please go and check it out. It's really well worth your time. I've watched the entire thing, but this is kind of the snippet that I wanted to talk about, and also I didn't want to take all their credit or all their content. So what do you guys make of this topic? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. While you're down there, be sure to jump scare the hell out of that like button if you have not already. Subscribe if you're new, and tickle my little bell so you get notified whenever we upload. And until next time, guys, I hope that you have enjoyed. I cannot wait to see you in the next one, and we'll speak to you later. Peace.